Let's talk about what happens when we click on the About link in our application. The browser is going to send off a request to /home/about, and that HTTP request will reach our development web server, which will deliver it to our application. Inside of every ASP.NET application, there's a routing engine, which takes requests and tries to deliver them to the proper component. We'll look at that routing API in the next module, but for now, you're just going to have to trust me when I say that the request ultimately ends up inside of a class that's in our controllers folder, and it's called home controller. So /home gets to the home controller. And in fact, /home/about gets to a method inside of our home controller called about. You can see there's a naming convention in play here, and that'll give you a clue as to what is happening inside the routing engine. The about method doesn't have much work to do. It's not even building a model here. But let me put a breakpoint by clicking out here and running our application with the debugger, and then clicking that about link again just so you can see we hit that breakpoint. And if I press F10 to step into the code in this method, you'll see we are about to return a view. This is a particular type of action result that the MVC framework expects that tells it what to do next. It's telling the MVC framework, please render a view next. But what view does it render? Well, there's a naming convention in play here also. The MVC framework is going to look inside of the views folder and find a folder called home. That pretty much matches the controller name that we're inside of. Home controller, home folder. There's even a view file in here which has a CSHTML extension. It's called about. That's the name of the method we are inside. And indeed, that is the view that the MVC framework is going to render into HTML and send down to the client. Now you notice this view doesn't have everything that is in this web page. There's no big title here that says My MVC Application. There's no menu. There's no logon link. All those common parts of the user interface, the pieces that render on every page, they've been factored out of the individual views. The only content we need to worry about inside of the About view is the content unique to this particular view. Again, we'll see how that magic works when we dive into the Views module of this course. For now, what I want to focus on is a simple example of delivering some additional information to this About view. So let's flip back into the controller, and we've seen the controller play its typical role here. It has received a web request, it has selected a view to render. What we haven't done yet is put any special information together for that view to display. By the way, we could have picked a different view to display here by passing the name of a view. So we could say render the index view, which is the other view file that's in the home folder here. But we're going to stick with the conventional view, which would be the view named about, and give it some additional information to display. There's a couple different ways to do this. One approach is to use the approach that we see here in the index action, and that is simply to put information inside of the view bag. View bag is a dynamically typed object. That means that we can add any sort of property to this view bag, and it will be available inside of the view to pull out and retrieve and display. So we could say something like viewbag.location equals Maryland, USA. And if we want to display that in the view, then we'll come into about.cshtml. Let me put another paragraph tag in here and say location at viewbag.location. So the @ sign is a way that you tell the Razor View engine, here's a value that I want you to take, and I want you to write it into the response right here where I'm placing this particular expression. Now I'll just do a quick build by hitting Shift, Control, and B. Everything built successfully. So let's come out and refresh this page. And you'll see that we're now displaying the location on our About view. So this is one approach that a controller can use to pass along information to a view. But next, let's look at a different approach, an approach using what we call a strongly typed model.